Hi, DeVika. I'm so excited. You have a great topic. We're talking about the seven sexological conversations. We're on four.
Yes.
Sha, 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 sha.
So far, we've covered systems, science, and sexology. We've covered race, culture, and decolonization. And then last week, we covered health and neurology. So we are now in uh, gender orientation, well, and sexual identity. That's where we're at. So, yes, it's an exciting week. So, anything you want to say about this topic before I get started?
I This topic hits home personally for me. On For my kids, it's definitely a personal conversation, but it's also a conversation. So I grew up with racists in part of my family, the part that I don't ignite with. But then as this conversation is becoming a conversation, now we have sexist, right? Like, and sexist is taking on a whole new meaning because it's not just women versus men, it's now people who refuse to allow you to be who you want to be as you want to be. And it To watch a parent treat a child in that space, it's difficult. A lot of the things are difficult. And then there's also, I see people getting grace where other people aren't given grace. Like, oh, it's okay if that one person doesn't properly gender identify me because they're that one person. Um, and it becomes very difficult in that conversation.
So,
So,
I
yeah.
want you said difficult, but what I want you to really do because you are speaking for a lot of people right now, and difficult and have a wide range of experiences. And I'd rather you really share, like, what is the experience? Like, not just frustrating or difficult, but what happens in your family when, or in your community, or in your world when
Disempowering.
it's disempowering. And what does disempowering look like?
I believe that it really takes away the idea of what do you want to be when you grow up,
Say more about that.
right? It takes away the idea of, well, you can be anything, or you can do anything, or you can these, or you can those, and they're very much things that we say. And Eileen on New Reality says it the best. Who do you want to be, right? Not what do you want to be, but who do you want to be? And the reality and the truth is, who do you want to be is, I feel trapped in this body, or I feel like this doesn't work for me, and I need this to work for me, and this is how it works. And when you don't honor how it works, you're disempowering their emotions, you're disempowering their beliefs, you're disempowering the mental state that they're in, instead of supporting it. Support them as they are where they are, and you told me that.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I really want to kind of spread that out because in this area, there's a whole lot of people who have a whole lot to say, a whole lot. And yet their system, going back to number one, um, gives them very little knowledge. And then if you are incorporating things like race and culture, and then you are including things like health and neurology, now there's a whole, now we're getting deeper. We're getting deeper and we're invalidating people at a whole nother level. It's one thing if I have a system and a belief and I keep that system and I belief to myself, and that's the way things used to be. It was rather insidious, but it was far more comfortable on the surface. And so people didn't say things, or you just didn't do things, and you didn't talk about sex and politics and money. But now we're talking about these things, some people against their, their desire, and many people without the tools to do so. They don't have the tools, because when you grow up in a household where you just were told not to talk about these things, not to talk about these things, and then now somebody says, pop quiz, we're going to talk about these things, there's no development and there's no skill base. And so what we're finding is on both sides, people are disempowered. We went from not talking about it to talking about it. We went from a boy has a penis and a girl has a vagina, and this is the line of, kindergarten cop everywhere, and everybody laughs. But now that's about where we're at. That is a kindergarten conversation, sexologically. And now we have all these people who have this kindergarten level education, and we're asking them to do quantum physics. We're asking them to have a real grown up conversation. We're asking them to engage in high level conversation. And the impact is very much just harm for a lot of people. Um, you know, and so it sounds like I'm not necessarily talking about the topic, and that's because I could spend a whole lot of time talking about the topic. But what I want people to understand at the level of this topic is that it's very important that when you're talking about this topic, you're actually educated and informed when talking about this topic. This is not a topic where our opinion is helpful, because there are facts, if we back it up to our system and our science, that exist. I recently watched a movie called Everybody. It's a great, I don't know if it's a documentary, but it's what goes for documentaries these days. And it's a movie about people being intersex. And intersex people are one of my very quiet passion, not so quiet passions, but I really, everybody who knows me, if they pay attention, they know that I am a stand for intersex people. I have intersex people in my life. I believe that on some level, I might have been intersexed on some level, given some of the issues I've had in my gynecological history. Um, because intersex is a spectrum. And so, there's certain ailments, like I have PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder. I wonder if my premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which has me experience my premenstrual phase with much more pain, much more sensitivity, much more debilitating. I have debilitating pain. If that's not a function of something chromosomally, chemically, hormonally, that's not on the level of what a typical, you know, female reproductive system might have. Um, you know, infertility for me, from my educated view, has some grounds in being intersex, because we either have, this functioning reproductive system that shows up with all the parts and pieces, or we don't. And so when we're talking about this very wide topic, it's really important to know that you don't know what you're talking about a lot of time, unless you've actually spent time in the subject matter. And that doesn't matter if you're talking about gender. It doesn't matter if you're talking about relationship orientation, and that's where we get our ethically non-monogamous, we get our polyamorous, we get our polygamous, we get our polyandrous, we get our relationship anarchists, we get our kink, we get our BDSM, then we go over to like our orientation and our identity. So that's where we get our demisexual, our asexual, our gray sexual, our, there are so,
Asexual.
huh?
That one. Asexual was the one you taught me, which I
Asexual,
loved that one.
asexual. And so, people are just overwhelmed by this topic, but they don't shut up about the topic either. And so I really want people to understand that what you learned in kindergarten, what you learned in sixth grade was rudimentary. It was rudimentary then. It is it is beyond rudimentary now. There are middle schoolers who can talk circles around adults because they are educating themselves at levels and velocity that adults are not. And I really, want people to understand it's no longer okay to just pop off in this topic. It's just not. You can't just walk up and, well, I think this and okay, that's great, but the facts are what the facts are. And so, and these are scientific facts. These are facts that are based in science. Going back to the movie Everybody, we were talking about androgen insensitivity syndrome. And that is when, we're all created with vulvas. And then the hormonal mix comes, and maybe we get that clitoris to turn into a penis, and maybe we don't. But with androgen insensitivity syndrome, we were given a vulva. We did not take on what there was to take on to develop a penis, but we have XY chromosomes. And so to me, it's fascinating. Like, it brings my brain happiness. To other people, it's a threat. So I don't want to get into like the normal conversation about, what people are like. And I don't want to teach people. I want people to understand that in this area, the responsible thing to do is to educate yourself, or frankly, shut up. I hate to say it that way.
Well, so there's a difference when we talk about the systems and we talk about science and the health. And if you're educating yourself inside of a system that doesn't believe in those things, then you are unable to learn what the science is. And with science and health are a huge place that really has taken a look at where are we mentally, where are we physically, and as a person, when you're locked into, some people get locked, and don't get me wrong, people get locked into science as much as they get locked into systems, or as much as they get
Mhm.
locked into where they're grown up. But there needs to be an open-minded of who is in front of me is a human being.
The end.
This is how I respect humanity and the people around me. And you said something earlier about how we used to just not say anything, keep our mouths shut, don't talk politics, don't talk this, don't talk that. And that was very detrimental. That's why, people come out of the closet. That's why people stay in the closet. And we're not just talking sexually, we're talking drunks.
Come on.
We're
Come
talking
on. That's powerful.
there is a list of addictions or a list of mental ailments that stay in the closet that people don't recognize or discuss or talk about. And in this situation, if you cannot accept somebody for who they are as they stand in front of you, then you will not be able to have a relationship of any kind with that person,
And
with
in
that
that case,
human.
yeah, sorry, and we're running out of time, but in that case, it's just best to really be quiet. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you cannot really, Brittany, you brought it home. This is the area that, like, for me, it's just really, we're doing harm to people, and we're doing harm to humanity when the conversation isn't be respectful, if you want to get your questions answered, then you got to put some skin in the game. Hire a professional, get some education. But otherwise, this is not an area where opinion is helpful. You have opinions about what you like on pizza. You do not get an opinion about how someone is allowed to exist as they be and as they are. So
Exactly. So everybody, QR codes over here on this side. Please, please, please book with DeVika if you want to learn some more and really get into this topic or any of the other topics. There's a QR code um, to our playlist on YouTube. Please see it. We are in episode 6, so we are cruising through. We will see you all next week at the same time. Thank you all.